So welcome everybody. My name is Kristen Dieffenbach. I'm the current president of the United States Center for Coaching Excellence. And this is our opening session within the program, looking at supporting a profession, a discipline, and the quality of sport coaching for all. I will be giving a bit of an overview of what the USCCE does and how we are operating as an organization, as well as you'll hear from our two chairs, Cameron Kiosoglous, who is our education chair, and Lori Gano-Overway, who is our accreditation chair. So we wanted to start off with a little bit of information for those who might not be familiar with the USCCE, that we've been around and sort of what we do. And our vision really is that all sport organizations will have a systematic, integrated, and continuous approach to the development of coaches that's guided by theories and best practice and led by qualified coach developers. And you'll hear more about this systems approach and this systems focus as we go through. We really are looking to help elevate the status where coach developers and coaches are fully prepared within the sport environment in which they work, looking across all contexts, which then of course leads to our mission to help strengthen these systems and enhance the work that coaches do and the support that coaches have for the quality of the sport programming and the experiences of athletes. And those are really the guiding points that are helping drive everything that the USCCE is doing, both in terms of the mini summit, as well as the broader picture of the work we do. And again, knowing that not everybody is familiar with the USCCE, we wanted to provide a little bit of a brief overview that if we're looking way back, that of course, sport coaching has been at the center of the conversation of sport for a very long time. Many of us are coming from a sports psych background. But even before then, looking at AFERD and the forming of AFERD and Shape America in the United States, the founding of the IOC going back into the late 1800s, early 1900s, and really leading to this long conversation around the importance of physical activity, physical education, and sport throughout that early period of time, leading up to the actually the early 90s, late 1980s, where the conversation came back around to sport coaches and the importance of sport coaches and the importance of quality training for sport coaches, which really became the driving force of the early days of what was to become the USCCE, with the first conference in 2001 for the National Coaching Coalition in Indianapolis at that time. That, of course, leading to some important documents that were published 2002 by Martins, Flannery, and Roeder, The Future of Coach Education in America, which was a really important document and part of that early conversation. The USCCE, of course, at the time being a part of Shape America, with standards being set and for sport coaches in the United States, and that leading to this creation of the National Committee for Accreditation of Coaching Education that was within Shape America. We had the opportunity in 2017 to grow out of Shape America and become our own entity with the support of several organizations in the United States, including Shape America. And since then, we've been working at developing and hosting opportunities to bring together the people who do coach education and coach development within the United States, but also connecting into the growing global community that's led by the ICCE, the International Council for Coaching Excellence, and other groups around the world that are talking and working in this area. Wanted to point out as well that within the United States, the USCCE has really strived to become a part of the national conversation. We have in 2020, we were lucky enough to get our application approved to join the Joint Commission on Sports Science and Medicine in the United States, which brings together a variety of leadership organizations that are passionate about different elements of physical activity, physical education, and sport for the enhancement of the participant experience and the safety of participants' experiences. And so we're really excited to be growing in the national conversation from a leadership perspective, bringing the sport coaching education perspective to these conversations. Some of the other conversations that we've been a part of most recently as we continue to grow and evolve, the National Youth Sports Strategy, which was published by the Department of Health and Human Services at the end of 2019, where their fourth strategy was really focused on the importance of recruiting volunteers into the youth sports space, and that work being analogous to some of the work that we're doing to try to help enhance the support and development of youth sport coaches. The work that's of course done by Project Play in the United States, the Aspen Institute's initiative, where they have their Play 7, which is train all coaches, with the challenge, of course, of serving those well-meaning volunteers who are often coming in for just 2 or 3 years at a time. And then looking at the other initiatives that are out there that we've been connecting with and working with, Healthy People 2030, the Physical Activity Alliance, the Play Sports Coalition, and the international movement around youth development and child protection through SIGA, the Sports Integrity Global Alliance. And all of these initiatives being very large and broad, crossing over physical activity, physical education, and sport, but all of them having a piece that connects to and relates to the importance of the sport coach and the sport coach education system within them, from the across all contexts, from youth up through high performance, and recognizing the need for developing and supporting systems that allow the best practices to take place for the athlete experience and athlete safety, and that being where we really come in. Oops. So this leads us to this conversation of better coach development systems and better coaching, leading to better athlete experiences and outcomes, which really is the focus when we start looking at what we do on this piece of better coach development systems. And that's where the USCCE really has made its sort of its home and the focus of its work as we think about the organizations, programs, departments that provide coach development systems or develop and create coach development systems. We think about the coach educators who are developing curriculum and delivering curriculum to the coaches, and the coach developers who are working across the continuum, both as coach educators, but also in supporting coaches in their ongoing development. So further, when we start looking at this improving systems element of what we're doing, we really are trying to make sure we are helping with the systematic and evidence-based review of programs and creating these materials that will guide and support the people doing the work and the systems of work that are at play here. With that in mind, at the end of 2019, in a very fortuitous live stream event, before the rest of us knew we were going to have to live stream all the time, we had an event in December that year, which resulted in the development of 2 essential initiatives: the movement to improve sport coaching and the movement within that, the supporting the minimal standards in youth sport coaching and supporting the profession of sport coaching. And those being really essential to the work that we are currently doing. Through this, we've also had the opportunity to partner and work with a variety of organizations, most notably becoming National Youth Sport Strategy Champions as part of that Department of Health and Human Services program, and partnering with organizations like NACHE, the ICCE, I Coach Kids International, or I Coach Kids World, actually, excuse me, SIGA, Roman and Littlefield, and NSCA, to really look at ways in which we can help grow and enhance the work being done by folks in coach education and coach development. And would be remiss if I don't mention, although Lori will speak to this more, the continued work that we are doing with Shape America to support their set of national standards for sport coaches, which is currently in its 3rd generation, that was developed collaboratively to provide this framework for recognition of programs. So wanted to give just a brief overview and an understanding of, with these things in mind, what exactly is the USCCE doing? And for those of you who are interested in, and current members, we will be having the member assembly tomorrow evening, Tuesday night at 5 p.m. Eastern time, in which we'll talk a little bit more about some of these from a membership perspective. But right now, just for an overview for those, again, who might be new to the USCCE, I wanted to share that we have 4 core strategic plan initiatives that we are currently functioning off of. We have, of course, the executive functioning, things like some exciting updates to our website that will be coming, and how we are growing as an organization, as a national nonprofit in support of programs and the things that we're doing. We have an initiative where we are really working to provide industry guidance for evidence-based coaching education and coach development practices. We are working to establish coach development leadership as sort of as a global identity and a place for people who do this work to come together, to collaborate, share, help grow the understanding of what it means to really provide coach development within the systems of sports. And you'll hear more about these initiatives as well from some of the work that both Lori and Cam will speak to in a few moments. And then we really do want to be that professional home for folks that are doing this work, to share resources, network with people, develop the industry as it continues to grow. So with those things in mind, I am going to turn it over to Cam Kiosoglous to start off with here, who is our current education chair and doing quite a few things to help keep the USCCE growing and evolving.
Thank you, Kristen, and just want to acknowledge all of your work, particularly over the last 12 months. It's an exciting time, I think, for all of us, particularly in coach development, and to see over 80 of you taking some time this morning to join us in this conversation. I think we're thrilled that you're all able to join us, and really excited about what we're going to cover in the next couple of days. I just want to start out, to mention the elephant in the room, that it has been a very, very tough last 12 months, and dealing with complexity has been at the forefront of everything that we're dealing with. And I think that's been the centerpiece of planning for this event, bringing us together to really tackle the current issues and challenges that we're all facing in coaching, in sport, and particularly in coach development. As we all know, sport is a microcosm of everything that's going on around us. And I really just want to take a moment to acknowledge each of you for taking the time to carve out of your schedule to be able to dive deeper into an area that I think, for those of us that have been around for a while, this is an area that we're very passionate about, but certainly want to welcome everybody that's new to USCCE and to this conversation. And to take our leap of some advice that I need as much as any of us, but to see if we can take some time to not multitask over the next couple of days and really dive into what is, I think for all of us, a really critical topic, because we know how much impact we can have. So I'd love to see in the chat if you'd be willing to share with us what are some of the challenges that you're dealing with right now, and maybe connecting that to what you hope to gain over the next couple of days, just as an opportunity to make sure that while some people's cameras are on, that you're actually hearing us, and there is some little bit of interaction in this early bit. But yeah, I'd love to hear what are some of the challenges, what are some of the issues you're facing. Melissa, welcome. Institutional support's a big one for sure. Time, Christopher, absolutely. I think that's a universal challenge for all of us. And one of the areas that we focus on from an education perspective has been the Coach Developer Academy. And in November and in March, we had an opportunity to bring folks together from some of our national governing bodies to use some of the content from the Coach Developer Academy that I know many of you have been through that are on the call, to go online and to introduce a sort of foundations to coach development, and we're going to continue to build off the success of these past two programs, and we'll be having continue to be offering more focused opportunities in coach development as we move into the summer and into the fall. I see a couple of other ads here for motivating coaches, shifting mindset online. I know that's a big one that we've talked about. Mental health and work-life balance have definitely been areas that we've talked about in a number of the committees. And I do want to acknowledge the National Coach Developer Academy that the ICC, in collaboration with the Nippon Sports Science University, have been hosting a program over the last 7 years. And that came to a conclusion this past spring. And I mentioned that to this group because I think it's an important legacy, not only of the Olympics that will be hosted this summer in Japan, but also of the work of the ICC and John Bales, who you'll hear from through the next couple of days, and also Masahito Ito from the Sports Science University there in Japan, a legacy that really has seen the evolution of coach development in all corners of the country, with over 100 graduates from that program. And I think that connects nicely with many of folks that have been through that Coach Developer Academy in the committee work that we've been involved with. I don't know if I have time to mention all of the committees and all the work that everybody's been involved with, but a really exciting time for a lot of activity that's been going on. And I know Kristen's already mentioned a little bit of what the committees have been doing, including this event. And also Laura will be mentioning some of that coming forward. But I think it's important to acknowledge certainly the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Committee and the work they've been doing on obviously a very significant and important topic, not just introducing a discussion, but also actions oriented towards, making our environment, making the sport environment, the coach developer community more inclusive, more diverse, and more equitable. And I think that impact that the committee's having is a really great example of some of the work that our committees are doing. Professionalisation Committee has been doing some great work on looking at what job descriptions look like, how we're bringing new people into the profession of coaching and also coach development. I think we'll see some really insightful resources that will be shared from that group into the coming year. I certainly want to mention the Students Committee and that group of emerging leaders looking at, again, the long-term development and future of our organisation in our students. So applaud that group for all that they're doing, and also wanted to mention our Research Committee who are working on developing some foundational documents as to the importance of what we do in coaching and coach development. Certainly the engagement events that we've been hosting has been one of the upsides, a positive of the pandemic, to be able to bring that space online and to create a forum for really important conversations that advance not only the coach developer space, but also the trends and issues that we're facing. And so lots of great information from those events on our website. And I know that we're looking at upgrading that into the new year. Want to mention our communities of practice and a couple of the areas where the social learning spaces has been an important opportunity for some of our community leaders to interact. From the national governing body perspective, that group has been together for quite some time, but certainly in the last 12 months has come together and really been a powerful venue to really bring problems of practice together. Also, our Women in Coach Development group is another area that certainly has moved the needle in the conversation of what we need to be doing as a profession. And I think finally, the discussion, not only locally but also internationally, of how is coach development evolving in the space of not being a one-size-fits-all profession. And I think one of the wonderful aspects of this community is we bring together consultants, we bring together academics, we bring together those that are in the field, and that notion of the pracademic has evolved, I think, in a lot of ways to really understanding our context. And I know that that's going to be one of the key features of the next couple of days as this conversation evolves. And Liam and I will wrap things up at the end of Wednesday's discussion, talking about some of the global issues, some of the discussions on assessment and how that conversation is quite complex, but really important to where we're moving forward. The conversation about global standards, what does that mean for what it is that we do in the coach development space? So we really hope and encourage you to interact as best as you can. Use the chat function to connect with those that you haven't seen for a while, and even for those that are new to the group. So really appreciate everyone's time. We know that there are a lot of challenges that we're facing, but we're thrilled you're able to join us, and really look forward to hearing from you about what we're doing that works, what you see that in your context would help to advance what you're doing. So please let us know. Please let us know, particularly if you want to be more involved. There are always spots open in committees and other work. There's plenty of work to go around. So again, just want to thank everybody for your time, and really hope you get a maximal amount out of the time you spend with us. So with that, I'll hand it over to Laurie.
All right, thanks, Cam. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a look at the accreditation side of things and offer some ideas about what accreditation is doing with regards to looking at our strategic plan as we're moving forward. And so to just kind of recap a little bit here, as we're looking at the USCCE, this is what we do, right? Is that we focus in on improving systems, coach education, coach development programs, in order to improve coaching and to look at better athlete outcomes. And what CAM has done is really shared a bit here in terms of the education and guided program development resources. So looking at the Coach Developers Academy, looking at the committees and the number of committees that we have available and how they are working to provide resources to members and to other individuals in terms of coach education and coach development, the focus in on communities of practice and the evolution of coach development. And so that is one arm of the things that we do. The other is looking at this notion of systematic evidence-based program review. And that's where the accreditation piece comes in. And so what I want to do is to just talk a little bit about what this arm of the USCCE is doing and what it plans to do as we're moving forward. So looking at that strategic plan. And so the first thing that I just want to emphasize here is kind of thinking about this notion of providing industry guidance for evidence-based coach development, coach education practices. Well, in order to do that, we really need the evidence-based component. And in terms of what uh, the focus in on accreditation does is provides this systematic external evaluation. And what I've done here is I've put together a logic model that's focused in on NCASE, as Kristen mentioned, that's the National Committee for the Accreditation of Coaching Education, which operates under the auspices of the USCCE. And what I've done here is that while many of these factors can be associated with coach education and coach development, what I'm highlighting here in the red are those things that the accreditation arm looks at. And so when individuals are interested in determining how their program is doing and whether their program is meeting the standards, this is what accreditation offers, an opportunity for individuals to go through a logic model in terms of evaluation to determine, do they have these things set in place? Their program's mission, goals, values, what inputs look like, what their participants are doing, their outputs, and then looking at these outcomes. Now, it's not the full-fledged piece, and it's only one way to kind of frame what we do in terms of looking at accreditation, but it does note this notion of external evaluation. Now, what we recognize as we've evolved in terms of the USCCE is that accreditation is very helpful for a limited number of programs. But what was noted in the chat is the limited time availability, the limited resources that are available, is that not all programs can do a full-fledged logic model or a full-fledged accreditation or evaluation of the program. And this is where we've introduced the recognition program. And so while accreditation goes through a full evaluation process, looking at multiple elements of the program, the recognition program takes a smaller chunk of that and focuses in on those things that you can see underlined here is it's looking at still the individuals involved in the program, looking at the reach of the program, but the focus is on curriculum. And so the emphasis is on how is that curriculum doing with regards to what's considered to be the evidence-based practices in the field. And so we have the accreditation program that is more in depth and the recognition program that is less in depth, but also focuses in on this notion of curriculum. And so as we think about that idea of curriculum, that brings us to this notion of that what we're trying to do is to help programs recognize how they are aligning their programs with evidence-based practice. And so, as Kristen mentioned, the connection with Shape America and the national standards for sport coaches. And so what we try to do is look for both accreditation and recognition programs to be connected to these evidence-based standards that have been created. What I will do here is that I think I can connect this to those national standards, and I will share that in the chat so that you can have access to those. Let me see if I can pull that up here. There is the links to the national standards that are readily available through Shape America, so programs can look to see how they're doing with regards to that. The other thing that you'll note here is flexibility, is that we know that coach education, coach development is not a one size fits all. You have individuals that are focusing in on participation coaching all the way through performance coaching. You have different age groups that are built in there, different sports that are built in there. And so we recognize that there's a need to be flexible. And as we go through evaluating programs, that's what we encourage individuals to do, is to create a program that fits their needs, and we are flexible as we take a look at how it connects to the overall guidelines, but also to the national standards. But our emphasis here is coming back to what our mission is that it's about quality, is that we're trying to improve the quality of coaching education and coach development. And the purpose is to provide more quality coaches, right? And what we also recognize is that there can be help along the way with coach education, coach development programs through branding, in terms of either having a program accredited or having a program recognized. And so that we offer that particular piece. And so providing those guidelines. Now, what are we going to be doing as we move forward in the future? The last couple of years, we've spent time revamping the accreditation system, and then also introducing the recognition system. And so as we're moving forward, here are the things that we're emphasizing, is that we're going to continue to provide this opportunity for programs to come to us and say, I want to know how my program is doing. I want to have my program evaluated. That's what we do. And we help guide individual programs through that process. And we also want to continue to raise the awareness and benefits of accreditation. And so you can see that we've started to put together infographics that fall into that. Also examining the benefits. And so we're interested in looking at what are the benefits of programs that have gone through accreditation and recognition. And then we're going to continue to increase our readers or the evaluators of the program. Another piece that you'll see here is that connects to another one of the strategic components, is being the professional home for individuals who identify themselves as coach developers. And so really going to work on providing an opportunity for accredited programs and recognized programs to come together to discuss the best practices, but to also discuss the barriers that they might face and how they can overcome those in order to provide quality programming. Additionally, looking at establishing coach development leadership in a global identity. And so providing resources. And again, as I mentioned here, we've been providing infographics that are built around the accreditation and recognition systems. And so thinking about how does your program align with the guidelines and where can you make improvements? And then also, how do you just go about developing a sport coaching education program? And so providing some guidelines in terms of those as well. And so having those infographics available in order to be able to do that. Another thing that I do as the accreditation chair is back to this notion of evidence-based practices. If we are going to continue to inform our guidelines in terms of accreditation and recognition, we need research that's done on programs to determine how effective those programs are. And so we have the USCCE Research Grant Program, which is really focused in on promoting research that has investigated the effectiveness of coach education programs. So this started in 2019, and so we have our previous winners here, and at the membership assembly, we will announce our 2021 research grant winner as well. So that's the accreditation side of things. If ever you need to contact me, I'm at accreditation at uscoachexcellence.org until June, when we have our next accreditation chair will take over. Thanks, Kristen. I'll turn it back over to you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Lori. And as everyone can clearly see, the passion and the support of a lot of people within the USCCE has really made the stuff that we're doing and the movement we have going forward possible. And I, shout out here also to our other board members with Charles Hal Wilson, Scott Douglas, Rock King, and Larry Lauer, who are also part of the sort of the leadership team that are really making things happen and move within USCCE. And as Lori mentioned, we will have some board turnover coming up tomorrow as we hit our membership assembly. But again, everybody who's been just so passionately involved and part of these systems and part of the committees. And we'll be looking, as Cam noted, for more people to join us and help with some of these initiatives. So let me share a little bit more with everyone about what's going on and some of the directions, some of the things we've been doing that might hopefully get folks excited, get folks thinking about ways in which the work they're doing connects into the larger picture. But to share a few things with you, again, coming back to this idea that we're focusing on these systems. And within these systems, we're talking about both what to coach, although we recognize in many cases the what to coach is specific within sports and context. And so we don't get into the what to coach from a perspective of what's the right basketball technique and what's the right soccer skill to teach, but we're thinking more about the context specific, what needs to be done for the development of athletes at different stages, and more particularly, what do coaches need to know to work effectively within different contexts of sport. And then more specifically on that, the how to coach and how to coach within those different contexts, which is something that really unites and ties together all the different sport coaching education programs and systems when we start thinking about that element of how coaching occurs and what are the essential elements, and some great information, great conversations that can be had around those many commonalities with regards to how to coach and essential topics, as many people have been noting in the chat, around essential initiatives, sport-based youth development, social justice issues, and other things that all influence what coaches do and how they do it, that tie together across all contexts the work that we do. So again, hopefully you're starting to get a picture of some of these strategic initiatives and things we're working on as we're going forward. And I wanted to share a little bit more about some very specific things that are being done right now that we wanted to introduce today, but that will be discussed and rolled out a little bit more as we continue on over the next quarter and into the next year. So in June 2019, for those of you who were in Colorado Springs at our last live summit, when we all got to be together and hang out, and for those of you who were there, got to climb the incline in Manitou Springs, back just outside of Colorado Springs. In 2019, we put up a poster, and it was a large poster with 450 logos of different organizations around the United States. And at this point, we were looking within the United States context, given our USCCE name and the work that we're doing. And we asked, what could we do? What could we do if we started to bring together the people within those organizations that were responsible for coach education, coach support, coach development, coach leadership, the people that hire coaches, the people that assess and monitor the coaches, the people that work with and create things for the coaches. And at the time, it was a big poster. It was a little intimidating, and it sort of blew a lot of people away that there were 450 different logos on the poster. And if you look closely, you'll recognize some of these are NGBs, some of these are professional sport organizations, some have more of a state or a regional flair to them, some have an international piece when you look at groups like Special Olympics. And one of the things we recognized at the time was this was just a small sample of those organizations. This was the work of a couple of undergrad students over the course of the semester who were asked to pull as many logos as they could. And then I'm very fortunate to have a doctoral student with an amazing graphics background. Big shout out to Christina Villalon, who has played a huge role in the work that I'm going to share with you and that we're going to talk about just briefly. And this database has grown from 450 organizations to 80,000 organizations within the United States alone as we start to think about and look at all of these pieces. And what this has evolved into, and I will explain how it informs and relates back to the USCCE as we go here, what it's evolved into is the beginning of an opportunity to really get a handle on and understand and reach out to these organizations to begin to try to understand the landscape in a much more systematic way than how we currently do it, which is often very anecdotal or piecemeal or disparate pieces of what we're doing. So in a collaborative project between the Center for Applied Coaching and Sports Studies at West Virginia University, where I am a faculty member, and the USCCE, we embarked on a project to begin to try to get a handle, or at least think we got a handle on this very large Wild West of what exists in United States context. And so this National Sports Census really begins to pull together and look at these 80,000 organizations in a searchable database that we are working on making, at least from some capacity, available to folks to look at and explore and to get a handle on some of these different numbers. And the way that the database has been currently set up, we recognize that there's about 12,000 scholastic programs. I'll show you some of the breakdown pieces in just a moment here. There's 45, 50 organizations that affiliate within that NGB family. We're able to classify things from a perspective of for-profit, not-for-profit, by level of sport engagement, by region, whether it is a local organization, a state organization, a regional or multi-state, or a national-based organization. We do have a few that also connect over to the international, but they have contingents within the US space. We're able to look at these and break them down at this point based on their identified focus. If they're in the sport-based youth development space, if they're in the competitive youth sport setting, as I mentioned, scholastic setting, we're able to take a look at the ones that affiliate with as being coach associations, and the recognition that within this database, there's over 120 different coaching associations, some of which are multi-sport, but many of which identify into specific contexts of sport within different levels of sport, and which some are connected over to national governing bodies or other organizations, and some are not. There's also over 400 different state coach associations, which in some cases are connected with the state federations programming for scholastics, but sometimes not. And so we're able to start to break down and take a look at some of these things, which is beginning to give us a window into, as we noted, the complexity of all this, but also looking for ways and opportunities in which to pull out and think about who are the coach educators and coach developers, and how can we best create an opportunity for these folks to network and work together, share, collaborate, because all of these are serving incredibly important contingencies, whether it be for underserved, for broader communities, for masters athletes, for senior athletes, in the collegiate sector, in the sport development pipeline, whether we look at an ODP program or other pipelining systems, or just in that broader recreational space. And so trying to look and use this database, we think it will be incredibly powerful for those purposes, for the folks that are working in coach education, coach development, to start to identify gaps and opportunities and collaborations and other ways to work together. This also providing a way for us to continue in that leadership space of recognizing the important role of coaching education, coach development, and connecting the work that we do within places like the Physical Activity Alliance and the Joint Commission on Sports Science and Medicine, so that we can acknowledge how we can best bring in the different pieces and the resources that want to connect in this particular area. Just to give you an idea as we begin to tease things out, and again, just so everybody's really clear here, the mastermind behind being able to make this into an interchangeable map really does, the credit goes to my graduate student, Christina Villalon, who has an incredible ability to take things that I talk about and help me make them real. And so I can't stress enough. If anybody is really curious about the backside of how this works, she's the person to talk to. I can speak to the vision and everything else that we're hoping to do with this. But just to give you a bit of an idea, when we pull out the piece and take a look at our state, multi-state, and national organizations that are in this space, we have just under 500 that have identified in that space out of that large database to go, and that's not including local organizations. It's not including the scholastic system or the collegiate system that is dealing with athletes and coaches. This is just things that are functioning on this state, regional, multi-state, or national level, serving in the youth sport-based youth development and recreational space. That's not to say that we've captured everything so far, but this has been about a 2-year project of mining other databases and trying to pull these things together. When we broaden it out a little bit and we take a look at the local youth sport programming, we jump that number up. When we talk about the same group of folks, we jump that number up to just under 14,000. And again, often not connected as with other organizations or connected loosely. Even when we get into some of the conversations with some of the governing organizations, the national governing bodies, the recognition that while they have oversight at the national level, at the regional level, the connection is often in name only, and starting to take a look at how well are those things connected when they're putting programming out at the high level and what's happening in a local level. To speak to Lori's question earlier of places where we need research, this database starting to help us figure out where and how we might begin to do some of this research that's really critical. One of the other things that the database has allowed us to do is it really has allowed us to begin to take a look at some of the different contingencies. And one of the first ones that we started to collect data on and are just beginning to sort through is reaching out to those national governing bodies, in that it's a nice smaller contained number of groups. We're dealing with 50 rather than 14,000. But as a place to start, to take a look at what are those requirements and really pulling those together in one place. So just as a sample here, starting to look at some of our NGBs and what they are indicating that they are requiring across their different spaces and how we might take a look at this. Becoming more powerful when we start to take a look at who's delivering and having those conversations and how can we help support this, with the recognition that just like many other organizations, sometimes the coach educator, coach developer is an N of 1 in an organization. Sometimes they're an N of 0.25, depending on how many other job pieces they have within the work that they're doing. And what we were starting to see in this database from the coaching education within national governing bodies is the recognition that for many of them, it is a small piece of someone's job as opposed to an entire department that's doing this. And the recognition, the reliance on outside coach education, coach development systems and pieces. And again, looking for opportunities and ways in which we can help support this larger system, both for individuals who are coach educators, coach developers as a part of this larger community, but also for these organizations that are doing this work. And how can the USCCE help connect those dots and create those pathways to support the larger system, which ultimately, of course, is all about athletes' experiences and outcomes and creating that positive continuum of physical activity, physical education, and sport for a lifespan, right? From a youth engagement through a lifetime, from high performance all the way through life enrichment. And so really taking a look at that. So we feel that this database, as it grows and as we're able to bring it out into the community and into both the applied and academic areas, will be really a powerful tool to help us bring some of these things together.
Kristen, just a quick question from
Yes.
Andy in terms of the access to this data. What are your thoughts on how you're planning to share this data with the membership and beyond?
Yes, that is actually one of the plans that we have, is to bring it to the membership. We are just working now to try to figure out how to best it. We ran into an interesting challenge, which I, as an academic, have never had before, where my database got bigger than Excel could handle, and created some interesting challenges. And so we've gone to another system, which is some of the graphics you're seeing here, and looking for ways then to share this out and make it accessible, while also, of course, protecting the data for those who are within the membership, and how do we best use this. So it will absolutely, the goal is absolutely to make it something that will support research efforts as well as the applied efforts of folks that are within the organization. The next couple of months, as we work with hopefully our new web developers and other folks, will tell on how we can bring it and make it most accessible. And as it continues to grow, sharing out some concise reports to best provide you with feedback from the database. But we wanted to share it because it has grown big enough, and it is, there will be some reports coming out. But yeah, absolutely the goal, which is why it was done collaboratively with USCCE, is to make it a live, living, growing database that will serve to support the work that we're all trying to do. It's very much a collaboration project. So hopefully it'll be one of those things that people reach out and say, hey, we've got something to add or connect to, and we can make this continually growing as a country without a sport ministry and without a centralized location. This hopefully will start to provide that foundation. And from a USCCE perspective, our main focus is, of course, how do we help think about that thread through it, which is that essential coach and how those coaches are supported and developed. As many of you have noted in the chat, we have lots of concerns and issues with the volunteer nature, the very Wild West, the very desperate, and in many cases, coach educators and coach developers who are functioning in systems that may not yet embrace this as an educational platform, and may still be thinking about it from a business perspective or another way that is more about revenue generation than system development. And how do we help use this to help drive that educational conversation and the value of coaches and the fact they need to be supported as performers in our system. So one of the things that actually brings me really nicely to this is this important point for conversations. And we really want to invite everybody who's a part of this conversation. The goal of the USCCE is collaboration, and hopefully that's come through as we've talked about how we're trying to partner with other organizations and how we're trying to connect out the work that we're doing as we grow. Slow and bumpy as a volunteer-driven organization at this point, but getting there. And so the 3 points in which we really are reaching out to everybody who is joining us today is to start to think about ways in which we can support. You know, what do folks need? Whether you're on the applied or the academic or somewhere in the middle as a pra-academic, what's the support that we need? Please don't say financial though, because I can't do that. How do we attract those who don't know that there is a community? How do we help folks that are working in this industry that don't know that there is a place in which to share and collaborate? There is plenty to go around for everybody who's working in the space. Point 2, how do we continue to serve? And by we, I mean everybody on this call, the larger collective. How do we collaborate? Where are those opportunities to bring best practices together as a growing field of physical education, kinesiology, all the different disciplines that come together? We have some great information out in our literature. How do we help make sure that is getting out beyond the literature? How do we help make sure it's having impact and growing things? And how do we support that application? And then, of course, the connection piece, connecting and educating, wanting to hear what you're doing. And I'll get to this in just a moment with some opportunities. Looking for connecting and educating organizations. Who are the people who are leading that need to know that there is a professional group that has the background to do the work they're looking for within their organizations? If they're looking to develop coach education or systems, do they have the right people who have, whether that be curriculum background, whether that be educational foundations, working with volunteers, connecting the dot between the athlete development curriculum and the training of those coaches who are teachers of that curriculum, and looking for the right people. And how do we help connect those things? And how do we help bring those people who are the administrators into the conversation so they recognize that just like I played is not necessarily enough to coach, coaching is not necessarily enough to turn around and be a quality coach, educator, coach, developer. If we're really talking about systems of education and development. Not to say those things aren't important, but is it enough? And I think many of us are sitting in that space where we know it's bigger than and requires more than. So a few things just to leave it before we sort of give an opportunity for some questions and pull things together. As Cam and Lori mentioned, there are a number of resources that we're trying to put on our website. There's the infographics, there are the previously recorded sessions from the 2019 keynotes and other things that have been recorded. Some of the events from here, particularly the 11 a.m. events, will be recorded and posted here. And looking to grow that as ways to invite somebody into the conversation that maybe missed something. Recognition that with Roman and Littlefield, we have a book series from the USCCE that is growing, the family of books, with the first one coming out here this month with To Be a Better Coach, with Pete Van Molen and Lori Gano-Overway, that's designed to support the standards. Cara Cocchiarella and Camille Adina with Winning Well, and then up next in the lineup here will be a handbook of coach education, coach development, designed to help people who are relatively new to thinking about this as systems of education and systems of professional development to support the work that we're all doing. Of course, there is the virtual mini summit that you are all starting off with today. I'm really excited to see the numbers that are here this morning. The rest of today, moving into some connection with a series on assessment that will continue across the 3 days. The very important essential topics around diversity, equity, and inclusion that have been put together by our DE&I committee that has some really amazing speakers later today. And then at 3:15, hopefully people coming back for what we hope will be an open collaboration. We'll have breakout rooms with some different topics around some of the themes today and opportunities to talk to people and collaborate and connect. We do want to, of course, say a special thank to the planning committee, Sam Callan, Tom Avicius, Rebecca Zakrychek, Leah McCarthy, Erlyn Lauer, Maureen Griffin, and Mark Hess, who really put this program together and acknowledge the fact that the program, when we decided we had to go virtual again this year, the program is designed to hopefully gather information and ideas from the chats and the conversations and the questions to feed into continued engagement events. And by attending, we'll be getting information out to you about those. And engagement events are designed to be small, little bits and pieces across the summer where people can get together and talk and collaborate. There will be a September mini summit, and we are actively seeking people who are interested in being a part of that planning and bringing more collaborative type conversations together to share and look, which will then hopefully feed into getting back together live, or at least in a hybrid sense, in June 2022 when we are in Spokane, Washington. And so this being designed as an ongoing conversation to grow those previous engagement events that we've been doing, to share what folks are doing. So the recognition of the power and the importance of that as we go forward. With that, like to see if there's anything that anybody would like to bring to the chat. Cam, if you could help me monitor that, because I've not been watching it as we've been going. Any questions, anything you'd like to add into that chat area? And of course, if you're interested, I should mention this really quickly. If you're interested in looking for ways to get more involved, the ending session that Cam will be doing on Wednesday will be an opportunity to highlight some of the initiatives, both from an ICCE, the global perspective, from the USCCE perspective, with some really specific events and committees and opportunities. But also please feel free to drop an email to info@uscoachexcellent.org, and we will be collecting names and trying to work through people's interests and opportunities in the coming weeks. And please feel free to reach out to any of the board members as well. Cam, Lori, myself, Charles Wilson, Scott Douglas, Rock King, Larry Lauer, to have conversations about what's going on and where you feel you might best fit, whether your background is very applied, if you're in an organization from a community perspective, an NGB or an academic setting. If you're sport management, sports psych, sports soc, physical education, teacher education, administration, any of those different areas, we have people from so many different disciplines and things going on that really speak to a lot of different areas. So helping us understand where your background is and where you're coming from and where you most want to get involved will really help us connect you into some of the work that's going on. We also have, of course, as Cam mentioned, our different committees around the coach development networks, the professionalism of sport coaching, long-term athletic development, the connection of the athlete curriculum with the coach curriculum pieces, the research angle, the diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I'm probably forgetting at least one. So we will make sure we get that complete list beyond what's on the website.
Kristen, quick question relating to the infographics. Are they used to share with organizations and students? Question from Sherry.
Yes, and those are all on the website. They're all downloadable. You may use them however you like. If there's somebody who's really interested in co-branding on those, we are absolutely open to that conversation, because the goal here again is to try to create that collective collaborative voice. And one of the things we recognize in this space that perhaps is one of the most challenging pieces is that we don't necessarily always have a collective vocabulary around these issues and these conversations. Even the fact that we tend to use the term coach developer is not something that's very well known outside of our own community. And so that's why we still talk coach educator a lot of times. Even the conversations around long-term athletic development, LTAD and ADM are not necessarily well understood, particularly out in the grassroots, where it is thought to be a program as opposed to a movement. It's thought to be something that's being put upon systems, as opposed to the recognition that there is curriculum and development science behind preparing athletes, and it's not just a formula. It's, it's a movement, not a recipe. And so they're designed to help create that. And we are also interested in, if you know of one that needs to be created to help with the common languaging, please, come and share, bring that to us. That's the work of some of the different committees to develop the content for some of these. And as you'll notice, they're not super, we're not trying to make them super intimidating researching. We're trying to make them very accessible. And some of them do have hyperlinks in them, depending on, especially the one that's there about the journals that relate back to the work that we're doing and things of that nature. Well, I'm happy. Sounds like so overwhelmed everybody. I'm sorry, not sorry, right? Hopefully excited people. I am very excited for the programming that we have up later today. We will begin officially with that programming at 12:30. And please note that it is a separate link for the afternoon programming from the 11 a.m. morning program. And that's really important, because the 11 a.m. was designed to be open, designed for anybody to come, trying to get folks a taste of what's going on in the conversation. So if you know folks that are interested in sport-based youth development, that are interested in this growing conversation of what's the role of the coach and how do we balance out everything we expect a coach to do with the preparation and systems design, please encourage them to attend tomorrow, the 11 a.m. free open session. On Wednesday, we'll be talking more around this emerging systems, especially in sport-based youth development, and what's happening to try to work within those volunteer spaces on some of the larger groups that are doing some great work and spark some conversation there. So please invite people, send those links out, go to the website, send in the registration. But note that the afternoon, you should have all received that link for registering in and getting into, if you registered through the full program site, you got a separate link to come into the stuff that begins at 12:30, and that will remain the same link for the rest of the afternoon for Tuesday and Wednesday from the 12:30 on sessions. So if you have any questions about that, please email at info@. Someone is monitoring that to try to help out with that triage as this is going on. But other than that, I will stay on for 10 minutes or so. And if anybody wants to stay on and ask any more questions, I'm going to turn the recording off, but we can do a little less formal, and then we'll see everybody at 12:30 at the other link. So thank you all for attending.